In July 2025, the man convicted of murdering British tourist Peter Falconio breathed his last in an Australian hospital. The death of Bradley John Murdoch took a secret to the grave, a secret the entire nation of Australia had been searching for more than 2 decades. This event does not close the case, but it has extinguished the final hope of a family to find their loved one. Today, we will revisit the case file of Bradley Murdoch, a horrifying story of crime, survival, and a question that will forever go unanswered. The setting of this case is not the Australia you know. There are no bustling cities, no safe beaches. This is the Outback, a vast emptiness that occupies almost the entire continent. Imagine a region with arid land, scorching air, and a silence so heavy it could swallow a scream. It is this absolute isolation that made the Outback an ideal place where a crime could occur and vanish without a trace. One night in July 2001, two young British souls, Peter Falconio, 28, and his girlfriend Joanna Lees, 27, were living the adventure of a lifetime. They were on a long-term trip across Australia in their camper van. On the Stewart Highway near Barrow Creek, they were perhaps enjoying the majesty of the starry night sky, completely unaware that a grim fate awaited them ahead. And then, a white ute appeared from behind. The vehicle approached, signaling for them. The man behind the wheel, Bradley Murdoch, had begun his act. He pulled up alongside them and said to Peter a sentence he probably thought was helpful. "Hey mate, it looks like there are sparks coming out of your exhaust." This was not a new tactic, a classic excuse to approach a victim. But in that situation, in a place with no one to call for help, the sudden kindness of a stranger can make one let their guard down. Peter Falconio, a kind man, did what many of us would do. He stopped the car to check. He went to the back of the vehicle with the strange man. Joanne remained in the car, perhaps still believing in the unexpected kindness in this desolate place. Peter went to the back. A few seconds of silence passed, and then a dry, terrifying sound tore through the quiet night. It was a gunshot from inside the car. Joanne Lees heard that shot, and all the worst fears flooded her mind. The car door flew open. Standing there was not Peter, it was him, Bradley Murdoch. With a gun in his hand, he pointed the gun at her, ordered her out. He used cable ties to bind her hands tightly behind her back and gagged her. She might have seen the image of Murdoch dragging Peter's body, a scene that would become a permanent nightmare. Murdoch, after dealing with Peter, probably thought everything was under control. He had not anticipated one thing. He had underestimated the woman in front of him. In a brief moment, when Murdoch was distracted, perhaps to deal with Peter's body, Joanne seized her slim chance. Though her hands were tied and her whole body trembled with fear, she used all her strength to flee. She ran into the dense roadside bushes. He shone a flashlight and searched the area. Joanne had to hide like that for 5 hours, a long stretch of extreme fear and stress. It was a struggle not just of the body, but also of the spirit, and she had won. When dawn began to break, Joanne dared to leave her hiding spot. She ran to the road and was lucky enough to flag down a passing truck driver. The driver, upon seeing a woman in a state of panic with her hands tied, immediately knew something was terribly wrong. The police were notified, and the largest investigation in the history of the Northern Territory began. The challenge facing the police was immense. They had to search for a suspect and a missing victim in a vast geographical area. Their initial lead was based mainly on Joanne's testimony. She described the attacker as a large man with a distinctive mustache, driving a white ute. A sketch of the suspect was released and circulated nationwide. Meanwhile, Bradley Murdoch surprisingly continued with his life. He seemed to believe he had committed the perfect crime, that the wilderness would hide his sins. But he had made elementary mistakes that would lead to his downfall. The turning point of this case came from an unexpected source, a surveillance camera at a gas station in Alice Springs. Just hours after the attack, the camera had recorded a man whose appearance matched the sketch and Joanne's description. This man was driving a white ute with distinctive features. That man was Bradley Murdoch. He had stopped for gas, unaware that he had just registered himself in the police files. This footage became a crucial piece of evidence, placing Murdoch at the right place at the right time. But that was not the only mistake, nor was it the biggest. The most irrefutable evidence came from something invisible: DNA. Forensic experts carefully examined the t-shirt Joanne Lees was wearing on that horrific night. They found a very small blood stain on the back. The analysis brought a breakthrough. It was the DNA of an unknown man, not Peter's or Joanne's. Murdoch had inadvertently left his biological signature on the victim. Furthermore, his DNA was also found on the homemade handcuffs he had used. He had not only committed a crime, but had also generously left behind undeniable proof for investigators. With this evidence, tracking down Murdoch was only a matter of time. He was arrested in South Australia. When confronted by the police, he repeatedly denied the charges and concocted an alibi. But his words became meaningless in the face of solid scientific evidence. The trial of Bradley Murdoch in 2005 attracted international attention. Joanne Lees had to once again face the man who had destroyed her life. She bravely stood in court and recounted the details of what had happened. Her testimony, combined with the CCTV footage and especially the DNA evidence, formed an unbreakable web of proof. The prosecution presented its case concisely. They pointed out that all evidence pointed in one direction. The defense's efforts to undermine Joanne's testimony or propose other theories failed against the weight of scientific truth. On December 13, 2005, the jury delivered its final verdict. Bradley John Murdoch was found guilty of the murder of Peter Falconio and the assault and abduction of Joanne Lees. He was sentenced to life in prison with a non-parole period of 28 years. Justice was served. But the story did not have a complete ending, because a big question still lingered, tormenting everyone. A secret that Murdoch had deliberately kept. Where is Peter Falconio's body? For more than 2 decades behind bars, Bradley Murdoch remained the embodiment of defiance, a defiant figure who never admitted guilt. Even after his conviction, he still refused to reveal where he had buried his victim. He turned the Falconio family's pain into a prolonged mental torture. Peter's parents pleaded with him many times, but Murdoch remained silent. His silence denied the victim's family final closure, leaving them without a place to remember their lost son. His death on July 15, 2025, was not a victory for justice. It was his final, cruel act, a declaration that the secret would belong to him forever. With his final breath, Murdoch did not just end his own sinful life, he also permanently extinguished the faint hope of the Falconio family.